going on, you guys? Coast here talking Oakland A's clinched the AL West. And really, this has been a great month of September. First of all, let me just recap the season. It's been expectations weren't exactly high nationally, but locally, we all knew this team stuck to the core. Cannot prove that last year was just a fluke. This team actually set out on a mission, and they did their job like they were supposed to. Now, was it overachieving in the sense they clinched it with like 7 games to go? Yes. I expected this to be a closer race. Definitely the Rangers really collapsed in September, but the A's earned it at the same time. So, recapping to you, maybe you might be wondering, how did the A's do it? How the West was won, per se. How was the AL West won? Well, big thing is balance. And this is the thing that you can't do if you're a team that pays a lot of money on some people. Because if you, for example, the Angels, if you have a guy like Josh Hamilton, you got to play him because you paid him so much. For the A's, it's all about getting guys with balance, guys for platoon splitting, and guys who have good matchups against others, so it's kind of by committee. You got balance, switch hitters, and a lefty and righty on both sides. For example, the catcher position, that's the one that's always platooned is lefty-righty. You got Derek Norris and John Jaso at one point. Now it's kind of switched over to Stephen Vogt, who's been very good on the left side. And on the right side, you got Kurt Suzuki, who I think will be the postseason catcher on the right side. So a little bit of platoon splitting, very effective, I thought. That worked out very well. And then on the other part at first base, you had Brandon Moss and Nate Fryman. Fryman's good against lefties. Moss was good against righties. Once again, balance. You can't do that if you're a team that pays a lot for a player, but in our case we didn't. We just had the simple balance of guys who match up well with other pitchers, and switch hitters turned out to be very valuable. Coco Crisp, Jed Lowry, who was our biggest acquisition in the offseason. We needed 1 or 2 guys who can hit for average, and that was the big move we made, was for Jed Lowry. It was a gamble because we gave up 3 guys, and Lowry is injury prone, but it's worked out very well. And Bean knew what he was doing, and getting a guy like Lowry who has some plate discipline that he likes, obviously some very advanced stats that he liked. And then at the deadline, we picked out Alberto Callaspo. I mean, both guys don't have great defense, but Callaspo's done pretty well as an extra guy on the infield. We needed another, Sogard's the left-hander, so Callaspo is another switch hitter. Does very good against the lefty pitching, and that was the matchup that we've been wanting, and his bat has been hot as well. Josh Donaldson, he's in the MVP discussion. He probably won't win the award, which is fine, but he's done very well for us. And people wonder, how did he come out of nowhere? Who is this guy? Well, August 2012, when he was called up, he stayed hot, and he picked off to where he was from August 2012. If you watched him from then, he stayed hot through the whole way. So it's been a great season for him, everyday third baseman. In the outfield, Cespedes. Slow year. It was a slow start. He was hitting around the 220 line, close, barely above the Mendoza line, but he did have the power, and he's been picking it up ever since September began. September is where he needs to be hot, and he stayed that way, thank goodness. So, as much as he anchored me a lot of this year, and he looked kind of lazy at running at times, he's picked it up in September when he's needed to. Coco, when he's healthy, the A's go as far as him when he's doing stuff, so keeping it there. Chris Young's been the disappointment, a little bit of a disappointment, I think, with the bats. Does okay in a part-time role, but I guess he wasn't meant for that. So, pitching, Jared Parker, great player. Slow start, great player the rest of the year. No surprises from him. That was a top pick. In the rotation, Straley did okay. He was up and down. Malone was very up and down. Definitely Straley, though, picked it up late. Sonny Gray was called up late, and he's played very well. And Bartolo Colon picked up to where he was last year. Really had an all-star quality year, even though there was like a middle part of August where he was slow. But he's been playing well. It's been pretty good. Even A.J. Griffin, he gives up home runs, which a lot of these pitchers do. But Griffin's had pretty good moments for the most part. There's the one thing that's scary, is the bullpen. And thankfully the A's, I guess the bad bullpen in this past month has been the reason why the A's need to blow out their opponents, because the bullpen's been shaky. For most of the year, they've been good. I mean, Ryan Cook, great setup man, but he's had the worst September, if you've been watching him. One of the worst Septembers you can have. Sean Doolittle had a few ups and downs in the middle, but he's picked it up as of late. Balfour has been kind of scary. He's always allowing a base runner, but he's gotten out of it more times than not, and I know that's all that matters. He's gotten the saves. So yeah, the bullpen's a minor concern. Dan Otero has been a great story, though. That's the one guy out of nowhere who's starting to get some meaningful innings. And he's been eating them well. I've liked what I've seen from him. But the bullpen's going to be a big concern going to the playoffs. There's still some things and kinks that this team's got to work on. You can't relax watching an A's game until that 27th out happens. If you've been watching the A's like we have, it's not surprising. I had this team contending for the division. I had it. If you watch my pregame video, I didn't say they're going to win it. I did not guarantee that. But I did say they're going to be right in that hunt, and they'll be fighting with the Rangers. And that's what I expected. So they played right to where I expected them to. Yeah, the West was won with balance. And it's all about having balanced hitters in case there's an injury. And Cespedes was out for some time, and there was a part where Lowry was hurt. There was injuries here and there. Even the whole catcher situation when Norris and Jaso were out. All about balance. This is all about having balanced players, and not many teams can do that. You got to just... The A's did not develop this talent by high draft picks and sucking like the Rays or the Pirates. They did this by finding good trades, making home runs out of them, and finding other teams' prospects. And that's how it works. I'm not complaining at all one bit. We're probably going to play the Tigers. Yeah, revenge is best served cold, supposedly. It's going to be tough. The playoffs, obviously, is where everything for real happens, and this team has to be, no pun intended, on their A game the whole time. It's going to be a very, very stressful time. Playoffs begin. But it's good to be back. It's good to show that this was not a fluke season last year. They came back and won the division again with 7 games to go. So there's no question the A's deserve to win the division. One of the best right now. Billy Beane and the rest of that staff, major props. Lou Wolf still sucks. Until told otherwise, though. I'll see you guys later. From everywhere, underachievers like Sogard and Josh Reddick, or Sogard's overachieved, but Reddick's underachieved. There's going to be some interesting choices on the roster. I will preview the Tigers when the time comes. Great season. We got the division. Now it's a small step, but that's one step to getting, hopefully, doing something special this year. Oh yeah, by the way, nice going. Let's just briefly talk about the AL West division while we're at it. Nice going, guys. Houston, obviously rebuilding. We know that they sold off people years ago. Not a big deal. The Mariners, a little bit of incompetence. They got some pitching. Kyle Seager's promising, but there's still some incompetent hitting at times. It's improved from previous years, but they're still a year or two away from doing something. They need some, I think they need some depth, pitching depth, and a little bit of hitting depth. The Angels, major disappointment. Even if they finish with a winning record, you wonder where was that Angels team this whole time? They don't have a pitching staff in terms of support behind Jared Weaver and C.J. Wilson. No starting pitching, no bullpen, especially no bullpen. Even there were times the hitting didn't come through. Josh Hamilton not living up to his contract. Even Albert Pujols, I know he's hurt, but he didn't live up to his contract either. Obviously Mike Trout, an MVP candidate, I'm not going to question that, but they did not spend that money on bullpen when they didn't have one. It's very clear they didn't have one from last year. They spent that money on Josh Hamilton. Stupid. We'll see what happens from there on out. The Rangers, the most interesting story of them all. I had them contending. I had them right in the hunt with the A's as well. John Daniels made an aggressive move at the deadline. You got Matt Garza. You gave up 4 prospects for him. And then a guy like Profar disappoints. They had a loaded farm system, and they gave up part of it for Matt Garza. They even picked up Alex Rios at the deadline when, obviously, Nelson Cruz was suspended. So I don't want to hear excuses from the Rangers fans about Nelson Cruz. Pitching's just not as good as last year, minus Yu Darvish. And I know Holland had an okay start, but definitely their supporting cast was not as good as Matt Harrison was, who's hurt. And even their bullpen at times, there were just some moments their bullpen did come through, and especially the hitting. This month of September, 5-15 record as of this video being made. The hitting was really, really poor. So, Cowboys, Crusader, and others. I know Josh Hamilton was right, it's a baseball town. But I got one last thing to close this video out. So, without further ado, Nice going, Rangers. Let me close out this video right.
'Cause the eyes of the Ranger are upon you. Any wrong you do, he's gonna see. When you're in Texas, look behind you. 'Cause that's where the Ranger's gonna be.